Do you feel you have to prove yourself in relationships? Then this video is for you. As in this video, I will explain to you how to feel enough in relationships without doing anything. Confidence on lazy mode. Who am I? I have done inner work for the last 10 years, for the last decade, from this place of not feeling good enough, from this place of needing to constantly prove myself, to feel like there's people out there that are just better than me, and I just have to prove myself to them. And if I don't, then nobody loves me or nobody validates of me because I'm not good enough on my own. That's how I felt. So today I will talk to you how to free yourself from that. Now, first, let's talk a little bit about the thing that happened, because we got to become aware of what is happening. When we look at relationships, there's always someone that is in their frame and someone that is following that frame. As you were younger, you were following the frames of the older people because you needed them to survive. You needed your parents' approval, your parents' validation. You needed your validation of people in school. And some people even, you see this with their boss, they still like, it's almost like mom and dad turned into their boss at work because you need that validation to keep your job. So we come towards relationships from a transactional point of view where we actually need something from them. We need validation, approval. We need them to like us, because if they don't like us, we are scared that they will abandon us. Actually, this need to prove is a fear of people leaving us, people abandoning us. It is from this fear of others leaving us and just being on our own. That comes from a very young age. And therefore, from a very young age, you start to feel like you're not enough. You start to feel like you're not good enough. And it's almost a survival instinct as a child to be enough, to feel good enough. And then they start to ask you questions as you're young. What did you do this weekend? What are you going to do later when you grow up? Who are you going to become? And you wanted to say the most best thing, superhero thing that you could say. You were like, I'm going to be a firefighter. I'm going to be, a doctor, like helping people fire and helping people from cancer and all that, like, whoa, like trying to impress them. Right? You didn't say, I'm going to be working a simple 9 to 5, I don't know. You just started to say something incredible to impress them. And as a kid, you even, try to impress your parents, all to just get validation and approval from them. And when you get validation and approval, you knew, oh, I'm good enough. So now I can rest, right? So you had to do something. And maybe when it was like over the top, you won some championship, all of a sudden you had like a moment of feeling good enough, because now you're like, okay, everyone validates of me right now. Okay, this is a good moment, right? But then that goes away very fast again as well, right? Because it's relied upon experiences, moments. When you have this, when you have that, when you are having something, then you're good enough. I'm not trying to convince you to play the game of having more to feel good enough, because that game keeps on going. It never ends. The game of having more to feel good enough never ends. So we have to switch the script. We have to switch and get from their frame into our own frame, from other people's frames, trying to prove to them, to getting into our own frame of feeling good enough as we are. How do we do that? Well, first we got to step out of their frame. So people come to you and they want you to prove yourself to them so that you are in their frame and they can have power over you, control you. This is what they do in sales and pickup and dating. It's a common technique to ask a question so people prove themselves to you, right? And it's also the other way around. So you also will see a guy might do this to a girl and a girl might do it back to him to see how strong his frame is, because she wants to be led by him, but she doesn't want to be led by a man that doesn't have a strong frame. That's something that happens in dating. We'll talk about it another time, but it's important to understand what a frame is. It's important to understand that you're not having to necessarily always be in a frame and try to get people into your frame. That would be appropriate for certain times, but that's not how you want to live. You want to just live naturally. And therefore, it's important to understand what is your frame. How can you feel good enough as you are? Let's look at the person that gets you into their frame, how to not fall into their frame. So as a kid, you got to ask that question and you directly answer them. Directly said to them something impressive, something that showed to them, oh yeah, I do this, I do that. I remember when I was in school, people asked me, what did you do for this weekend? I was thinking and was like, I didn't really do a lot when I was younger. I was just playing with Lego, so it's just like, I just play with Lego, not really much. And then everyone had these like amazing stories, went footballing there, and then we went on a hike there, and then friends came and then we ate this, all that stuff, right? But I was a more introverted kid. So for me, it was just playing Lego. So I just played Lego or just did magic or did something like that, right? And all these other kids did all these amazing things, and I felt like I'm never good enough. Like I never have that weekend. And then sometimes I had that weekend and I was like, look what I got, and I want to impress. I had the birthday and I had a ton of cake and blah 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 blah. Really impressing people with my stories. You're never gonna win in that game because you're trying to prove yourself to them. Why are you trying to step into their frame? Why are you trying to answer a question that doesn't even need to be answered? You don't need to answer questions. You understand? When you don't need to prove yourself, you don't need to answer questions. People can answer your questions, but you're not answering other people's questions. People ask you something. It's not that you're not going to talk at all. You could still talk, but then you're not necessarily going to answer it. Or if you're going to answer it, you're not going to answer it directly. Someone asks you a question to prove yourself. So what kind of work do you do, or what kind of thing do you do? And the first thing that happens natural for you is then to just answer it. I do this, I do that. The best thing to do is to, when someone asks you a question like that, either make a joke out of it, still makes you free from their frame, not falling into their frame. Another thing you could do is to, when they ask a question, to really slowly but surely answer it. So this is what you see a lot in interviews. Someone asks a question and then they say, it's funny that you said that. It reminds me of a story, and then you're going to tell a story of this and this and this and this and that. And you go on slowly telling the story. And then at the end of the story, they tell and answer the question. You still answer the question, but not directly, not approving myself. I'm like acknowledging the question, getting into another topic, another story, and then at the end of it, I answer the question. And what you also realize when you watch interviewers of like really charismatic people, what you realize is that they have very slow paced response to a question like that. Someone asks a question like, how are you feeling? And then it's like, it's funny that you ask me that, John. It's fun that you ask me that, John. And then they go on, today I was walking and I was walking here, and then this and this and this. And then they go into that story, and everyone starts to listen because of their strong frame, because they're not answering directly a question, right? And that makes interviews interesting. An interview is more interesting if a person doesn't just directly answers the question. If it slowly answers the question, or if it makes a joke out of it, and you start to see what is happening is that these people are not trying to prove themselves. Not trying to prove themselves. They're giving value to the people, they're making jokes, they're telling a story, but they're not trying to prove themselves to others. That is how you get rid of other people's frames. So getting rid of other people's frames is the biggest thing, because that if you can get rid of other people's frames, then you can feel good enough on your own, right? So it's about deflecting all the other people's frames that they push on you, right? That's what makes you prove yourself to other people. That's what makes you feel like you're not enough. Then comes the internal work. So that's the external work that is necessary to be done. It's not like you can do just only the internal work and not change anything on the outside. If you go deep within, also things on the outside has to change. Otherwise, you're not taking your inner work seriously. So then, on the inner work part, it is about letting go of the need for validation and approval more and more and more. It means anytime you have something that you can prove yourself to other people, to let go. Just be like, I could prove myself to this person. I could say what I, have achieved or done. But instead of saying anything, instead of proving myself to anyone, I'm just gonna feel good about what I did, sure. Can feel proud of myself, what I achieved. But instead of that, I just let go. I let loose. I'm not gonna prove myself to them. And that need, that want, and that desire to prove yourself, just let that go. And that's when you start to become really confident. Because on the external part, you start to deflect the questions that people ask you. You turn it into a joke, or you turn it into a story. You start to look inwards, and every time you feel like I need to prove myself to other people, I need to get validation, I need to get approval. Every time you feel that need, and especially when you have something that would give you validation, for example, you achieve something and if you say this to your friends or your family, that they will give you validation and love for it, to let go of that. Then not go and talk about it. Because in the end, we can start to see that what this actually is, this trying to prove myself, is your own ego. Your own ego, first of all, needs something from the other people, right? They need their approval and validation and their love so that they feel safe. So they don't feel safe and good enough without their approval and validation. But by letting go of the need to get validation or get approval, so anytime you have the opportunity to get approval or validation, you just, instead of talking to people and showing off what you have, you just let go. Internally start to feel complete as well. Because on the outside, we now have understand the frames. We understand what we need to do. We understand that we shouldn't fall into other people's frames, and they're gonna push that onto us, and it's gonna be an everyday thing. It's not gonna be a one-time thing. Every day, people are gonna ask you questions. They're gonna ask you things, right? So it's gonna be an everyday task that we have to take with us. And the internal work, that is about letting go. Because you still might feel the desire and needs of needing validation or approval coming up. Like, I just need their validation, I just need their approval, I just need to show off. What is ego again, right? Ego is, look at me, look at what I got, look at what I have. It's the most basic form of ego that most people know of, right? The ego, most basic form of what people see as ego, like people that are not in the spiritual niche, the first thing they think of is someone that's a show-off, right? Someone that's impressing others. You're not going to be 100% perfect with this. And don't expect yourself to be 100% perfect with this. There are going to be times people ask you questions and you just directly answer them, and there are going to be times on the internal side, you still feel not good enough at moments. It's just about a journey, a progressive journey. Don't look for perfection, look for direction. It's going to be a progressive journey where you start to feel less and less need to prove yourself, less and less need to get validation from others, and therefore more and more grounded within your own frame. You start to maybe even see that your whole personality starts to change a bit, because when you're not trying to prove yourself, maybe your ambitions start to change as well, because before your ambitions might be to prove yourself to others, now you're maybe resonating more with just a good life, just a life that feels good. Maybe you start to be interested more in feeling good in your body, maybe feeling good in your energy, maybe, feeling more healthy, being more happy, becoming more successful, but not in the egoic sense of success, just being more productive, being more out there, trying to prove yourself, but not from a place of so much judgment that you need to get it right, because when you get it right, you get the approval that you want. It's more about a progressive journey. You aim for a direction, but you're not aiming for perfection. And that's what the ego does, right? It needs you to do everything perfect because you need to get the validation and approval of everyone. Some people even need to get the validation and approval of everyone that they don't even do anything. Because if they do something, if they, for example, put a YouTube video out there, they're gonna get negative judgment. And then they're like, I'm doing all of this wrong. Let's say someone just commented a hate comment on this video, right? If I would try to prove myself, I would be commenting like, no, that's not what it is. You know, it is like this, it's like that. You don't understand it. And then I would not sleep at night, and then maybe I would stop doing YouTube at all, right? And what would be someone that's not trying to prove themselves? They would look at it and they would not say, you know, screw them. They would look at it and be like, acknowledge, maybe something could be changed. But there's not a judgment on yourself. It doesn't mean you're not enough. It's like, maybe you're right, maybe something could be improved here in the video. It's more like a direction, it's not perfection. It's not like, okay, that's something I could take away with me, like an analysis. But most people's judgment, there is some truth to it sometimes, but sometimes it's also not. But even if there is a truth to it, the way it's presented by other people is mostly from a hateful point of view, right? You always want to take criticism with love. So even though someone can say something that is quite accurate, that you should change, it's more like a direction that in the next 5 or 10 years you should work on progressing towards. Instead of, right now, you need to fix this or you're not good enough, right? So we start to see common themes of like needing to be perfect, needing to always, you know, get everyone's validation. That also means you're stifled because you can't get their approval and their approval at the same time. If there's two different groups, you can't get everyone's approval. So people that try to prove themselves, they feel stifled because they try to prove this person, but then they also try to prove that person, and they don't know what to do anymore. They're just stifled and just don't do anything. It seems then like the safest thing to do. If I don't make a YouTube video, if I'm not speaking anything out there, then there will be no hate comments. So I'm getting their approval. At least I'm not getting their disapproval. There's also approval, right? So you start to see maybe when you start to prove yourself less, that you have more courage to put things out there, to make a YouTube video, to talk to someone, to talk to a stranger, to talk to a girl that you like, or a boy if you're a girl, to a boy if you like. So you start to see that it's no longer about me. That's basically what is trying to prove myself is it's all about me. It's all about what I can get more validation, if I get more approval, if I get more things like that, oh, then I will feel good enough. Yeah. Just get a little bit more of the validation, then maybe it will heal that emptiness inside me. But it won't. It won't. It will temporarily maybe, but it won't permanently fix you. And then the lights went out. I think this is a good time to also end the video in the darkness. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.